What's good, everybody? Welcome in to the Coach and Company podcast. We are here every single weekday to support our morning show on Stadium, on Bally Sports Live, Amazon Prime, YouTube TV, Roku TV. The list goes on and on. The morning show available in over 100 million homes every single weekday. We're also here on Sundays during the NFL season, and week one is now in the books. And what an incredible week one that it is. If you're new to this podcast, we never go longer than 20 or 30 minutes, but we have a ton of content coming out of BTT Studios every single day. We have two different YouTube channels for Coach and Company here and also for Coach and Bro and the Last Word over there. I encourage you to subscribe, like, and share both channels. It would really help us grow. Now, we try to get to 2 or 3 topics, and Tuesdays is always going to start to be kind of our look ahead. And this is where we kind of dive deeper, not necessarily from a betting perspective, because I like to think that we're a much bigger brand than just betting, because that can get very monotonous day in and day out. But we love sports here, and we know that you love sports as well. And so Tuesdays is always the day off for players. So nothing really changes. A lot of news comes out of every single NFL team, but also college as well. So probably the biggest story coming out of, I guess, last night is I was very critical on the Monday Night Grind, our 7 p.m. Eastern Monday show, that rookie quarterbacks normally are behind the 8 ball, behind the curve. But J.J. McCarthy was not your normal rookie quarterback. He set last year with a torn meniscus that he suffered during the preseason. It may have been a blessing in disguise because he had the ability to sit in that quarterback room the entire year, learn from Sam Darnold, who's now the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, and then walk into the starting quarterback position this year. Now, a lot of people were critical of Minnesota, their coaching staff, for making that decision and wasting the years of Justin Jefferson and the other good players that Minnesota has. So, for the first 2.5 quarters, that looked to be the narrative. And then he did what most rookie quarterbacks can't do. Cam Ward was faced with the exact same situation on Sunday in Denver. He was down by 8 and couldn't score any more points. Now, J.J. McCarthy was down by 11 last night to Chicago, in Chicago. Caleb Williams was looking the part. All right, you're number 2, but these quarterbacks look completely different until the last quarter and a half. Then Caleb Williams did what he seems to always do, and that is stop producing for his Bears offense. And J.J. McCarthy did just the opposite of that. He had 2 touchdown passes. He found Justin Jefferson. They got the job done. So now the Vikings and the Packers are 2-0, or excuse me, are each 1-0, and they both have wins within their division. Now, these early season games, we forget about them when we get to November or December because they happened so long ago. But the bottom line is this one equally as important as week 18 because the NFL started putting these divisional games at the beginning of the year and also at the end of the year when they matter the absolute most. So I can eat crow when I need to eat crow. I was completely wrong about J.J. McCarthy, at least how he looked. And I'm sure he's going to stub his toe along the way. Everybody does. But after week one, you'd have to put him in the a little bit surprise category of players and of teams. So once again, if you're a Bears fan like our guy Mikey P, it's got to be unbelievably frustrating to deal with this year in and year out. And I told a friend of mine the other day, we have a poker game like once a year or once a month. And I was complaining about how the Chiefs couldn't get off the field on third down. I think they stopped the Chargers one time. He's like, you have 3 Super Bowl championships, 3 Super Bowl titles. What are you complaining about? And I said, it feels as a lifelong Chiefs fan that you know how like your team will have one thing that you know to be true? Like your team will have that one issue that no matter if you win or you lose, you always feel like as a fan, your team can't do that. For me, it's stopping teams on third down. And it feels like my entire adult life, we've never been able to do that. Last Friday, I think San Diego or LA they converted like 13 out of 14, 14 out of 15 third downs. And so for the Bears, their thing that Bears fans have always been frustrated by was on paper, we have a really good football team. But when they go out there and perform, they don't play good football. And that's exactly what they did last night. Up 17-6, completely in control of the game. But you allow them to score that third quarter touchdown to get within one score. It completely changes the game. Same thing happened Sunday night with the Ravens and the Bills. 15 points, okay. We take our foot off the gas pedal a little bit. I guarantee you that because of what happened Sunday night and what happened on Monday night, you're going to see teams at the end of the year or middle of the year say, no lead is safe. We have to continue to play aggressive football. You're going to see points that normally would never be scored, but because of those two games, you have to. You have to play all the way to 60 minutes. If you're Baltimore, and I look back at that game on Sunday night, I'm not saying that it would have been easy for them to win, but they get to 40 points, and all of a sudden, they're ultra conservative. All of a sudden, they don't call any plays that have the ability to get a first down. And if you have a defense that you just watched for the last 15 minutes, Josh Allen over 250 yards passing in the fourth quarter alone. In the fourth quarter alone. So if you're John Harbaugh and you're that coaching staff, how do you even remotely not go for it on fourth down from your own 30 or 31-yard line? And that sounds crazy. It sounds crazy, but it would have been the right play because they weren't stopping them at all. 3 scoring drives where they went through them like sliced bread inside of 4 minutes. Inside of 4 minutes. You weren't going to stop them. Your defense was gassed. These coaches have got to coach better in game. There's several other examples from this weekend. I mean, if you go to Detroit and you look at what the Lions did, and they are a perfect example or science experiment for how quickly things can change in the National Football League. What do I mean? They lose their defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn. He's now the head coach in New York. He loses his offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, who passed over other jobs for 3 years and then took the head coaching job in Chicago. Gut-wrenching first loss for Ben Johnson, but gut-wrenching for Detroit as well. You lose your 2 coordinators. Now you got to bring in 2 new ones, and they may be putting in 2 different systems. Well, on Sunday in Green Bay, it looked like that neither one of the systems was doing anything. They couldn't stop Green Bay in the first 2.5 quarters, and then they couldn't score. They couldn't move the football. Jared Goff looked like a first-year quarterback for that day. That's how quickly things can change. If I'm Dan Campbell, he may, and it's too late to put the genie back in the bottle because he's not going to want to go back to not making $5 to $10 million a year. Because if you're a coordinator, you can still make between $1 million and $3 million, but it's not head coach money. But he may be, just like Todd Bowles down there in Tampa, a better coordinator than he is a head coach. Last night, head coach of Minnesota, he's known to be a good game manager. Late in the first half, they end up still getting a field goal, but he left 40 seconds run off the clock and then called timeout after third down, not after second down, and he had 2 timeouts left. It's becoming an epidemic, and I'm now making notes when I watch these games about bad decision making, because if I'm an owner and I'm hiring any of these guys, I got to have guys that know what they're doing inside of 5 minutes. Which is why what happened with Baltimore is so shocking, because John Harbaugh is usually very, very aggressive and has a great feel for the game. And when you're on the sidelines, less than 5 minutes to play, you got to have a feel for the game. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from week number 1 is coaches that had a great feel and coaches that did not have a great feel. I watched the Giants, Brian Daboll, who miraculously for him got another season. But yet for 60 minutes, his offense was the same thing. Russell Wilson, drop back, look at one receiver, take off running or scrambling for his life. The man cannot stand there and take hits anymore. And that's what happens when you become an older quarterback. And business decisions are not as easy as they were when you were 23 or 24. It's an issue. But Brian Daboll changed nothing. What is the difference between losing by 20 and losing by 15? The answer, nothing. But if you never change anything that you call, if you never try anything new, you're going to be stuck in the exact same spot that you've always been, a mediocre football team since Eli Manning left. And even when Eli was there, they had 2 great years. The other ones were average. That's who the Giants are. I don't know who can walk in there, but to me, and I deal with this when I'm working with my PFL job, is in 2025, whether it's the NFL, MMA, whatever the sport is, if you're not trying to do something different or go that way when they said, well, this is the way it's always been done, then let's do this or let's try this. As I was coming up in my early 20s, whether it was in Kansas City, I had a great news director, or when I got to the WWE, I learned very, very quickly who is entertaining, who I want to follow, the things that are going to cut through. The NFL is the most entertaining sport in America, period, point blank. And they have figured it out. And I think now that there's access to so many different things and access to so many different players, there's never been a more important time to have a coach or a person who runs said team to have a comprehensive look at everything. And I don't know if some of these coaches are able to do that. Sometimes the clock is an issue. Sometimes the likes of Dan Campbell, and I'm going to use him as an example until the day that I die, if he does not start coaching like a head coach. Sometimes restraint is what you need more than anything else. Not going for it on 4th and 3 from the 40, because you'll give them the ball at the 46 if you miss. Or if you don't get it, now you've given up 3 points. Those are decisions that you got to make, but you got to make the right one in the moment. So a lot of surprises over week 1. What was my biggest? I would say it wasn't Detroit, because I did not think Detroit was going to be that good based off of the coaches that they lost. So that wouldn't be my biggest surprise. It's not Minnesota winning last night. But if I just look at some of the games, my biggest surprise from week 1, but it's going to be interesting how his body reacts in week number 2. Because we know when you get north of 40 that you don't respond like you would like to. And it's nice to have that week 1 win. It's nice to throw 4 touchdown passes. But how will Aaron Rodgers and his 41-year-old body respond after week number 1? He says he feels great. They are home to Seattle, and then they go on the road to New England. Very winnable games. And then they're home to Minnesota, but they have their bye week on week number 5. And if I'm a 41-year-old quarterback, I don't want my bye week till week 10 or week 11. That bye week is gigantic for your health and to stay fresh. So I would say that's my biggest surprise because, and this is why the NFL is so much fun, the narrative was one or the other. If you love Aaron Rodgers, oh, he still has some left in the tank. If you believe the videos that they released, oh, he's slower than mud. And it was A. They were trolling us. He looked just fine. He moved around just fine. His arm looked just fine. And if he can be the leader that he thinks that he is, maybe this will be a team that saves Mike Tomlin's job. I know it's blasphemy. Pittsburgh ever to fire a head coach or ever to change a head coach. That's kind of like their thing. But sometimes a thing needs to be changed. And Mike Tomlin, yes, he would be picked up in a heartbeat by another franchise. But it doesn't mean his voice is still the right one in Pittsburgh. Sometimes after 10, 12, 15, 20 years, you need to hear a new voice, and that voice may need to have a different audience too. Other surprises. My own Kansas City Chiefs. I've got to deal in reality for Travis Kelce that as much as I want his weight loss to make him magically Travis Kelce from 5 years ago again, I just don't know if that's going to happen. I just don't know if he has the speed anymore. He had 2 catches. One was that long touchdown for 47 yards. Um, Maybe he has just fallen off the cliff. And I have to admit that. And I have got to accept that. Because right now he's not producing. He didn't produce last year, and through one game, he did not produce. But that wasn't even my biggest surprise. The one thing I really it frustrates me is when fans have a narrative about a player or a franchise and they don't allow that narrative to ever change. That person or that athlete is going to be the same as they always are. And that's not the case. In golf, Max Homa lost his card multiple times, came back to the PGA Tour, became a top 10 player. And now he's fallen back down again. You are able to change. You are able to get off the mat. And Daniel Jones, who everybody criticized the Giants when they gave him $40 million a year, and they cut him. And he was signed by the Colts at the end of last year and then given the chance to earn the job this year. And then when Anthony Richardson went down, Daniel Jones all of a sudden finds himself as the franchise quarterback. 22 of 29, 272 yards and a touchdown. But it was his leadership. And they looked in complete control over Miami over the weekend. Shout out to Kim. I know you're writing something. My eyes are so freaking bad I can't even read it. But I know it's something about the weight loss, maybe for a GQ photo shoot. If that's the case, Kim, then that's a sad state of affairs. If it took GQ and his life after football to lose that weight when he knew he needed to, because he's not as fast, and it's not a criticism of him. Everybody slows down. Every single person, unless you retire early, slows down later in your career because you want to have that one extra year, that one extra $18 million. It's a lot of money to leave on the table if they're willing to pay you for another year. So I don't blame him for continuing to play. I just want him to be productive. But maybe he just can't be. Sometimes you're not good enough anymore. You're not. And maybe that's him. I don't know. But shout out to Daniel Jones, who at least for 1 week, and we're going to find out this week because the Denver Broncos are coming to town. And if you're the Colts, you're starting your year at home against Miami and Denver, and then you go on the road to Tennessee and then on the road to the Rams. But they don't have their bye week, the Colts, until week 11 because I believe the NFL does not think they're going to be very good this year. But if I'm looking at their schedule and they're half decent, the Colts could win the AFC South Miami, Denver, at Tennessee, at the Rams, then home to Vegas and Arizona, very winnable, at the Chargers. So they're going to play in SoFi Stadium twice this year. I think it's the best field, the fastest track, the best stadium in all of the league. And they get to play there twice as an away team. Home to Tennessee, at Pittsburgh, home to Atlanta. They do play at Kansas City. Who knows how good the Chiefs are going to be? Houston, Jacksonville, Seattle, San Francisco, Jacksonville, Houston. They close the year with Jacksonville and Houston. So if they are halfway decent, look out for the Colts to be a player in the AFC South. All right, that's going to do it for today. We always look forward and look back a little bit on the NFL season on Tuesdays. Tomorrow, we will start to look forward to the week in college football after a week 2 that really saw no big matchups outside of Michigan and Oklahoma. We will start that look ahead today. All right, do not forget Off the Ropes with the Coach on Sirius XM channel 156 today, 2 to 4 Eastern time. And then, of course, Weekday Wagers, our second sports and sports betting show with DG, Robbie Hockey, and Mark every single weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern time on our Coach and Company YouTube page. That'll do it for now. For producer man behind the scenes, I am the Coach. This has been the Coach and Company podcast, and we will see you tomorrow.